All right. Nice. We're live for January. Welcome, everybody. So, how's it going? I'd like to welcome you to the January edition of the Baton Rouge.net user group. So, wow, that's a whole bunch of info that just popped up. So, yeah, tonight it will be us presenting. We're going to talk about .NET Conf and, the new additions coming to the .NET framework, Blazor, Maui, all that fun stuff. So we'll have a little bit of a discussion as far as showing some of the things that were presented during the conference. So this is an easy one for me just to rip off all their information. Anyway, before we get started, a few announcements. My name, for those of you who don't know me, is Brian McCoy. I've been running this or a part of this for a few years now. Tonight with me, I have the two Jeremys, Jeremy Cronin and Jeremy Knight. Yeah, so they will be co-hosting this with me and just speaking about some of the things that they're going to be excited about. So other than that, there has been some talk about in-person meetings in the Baton Rouge area. If you're interested in that, please let us know or let me know in the chat. So we are actually looking for someone to kind of host those on our behalf because we want to actually continue with the stream because it's so much fun and easier to do. And plus, I think a lot of our audience now has expanded outside of the Baton Rouge area. So to have them commute into in-person meetings probably just wouldn't work. But if you are interested in meeting in person, let us know and we will, get you hooked up with some people who are looking to set up some meetings in person in Baton Rouge. So I think right now it's mostly the SQL Server guys who are wanting to do that. But if we can have a .NET presence, that'd be great. So, let's see, what else do we have? What else? Yeah, no, that's about it as far as announcements go. Please, we have Discord, so feel free to hop in Discord and chat with us and let us know how things are going. We have all the commands set up. That way, if you need to figure out how to find us on Twitch or Discord or Twitter, we have some commands. Well, I think they're just all set up for Twitch. So if you're watching on YouTube, you won't be able to do that. But until then, feel free to use the chat freely to get with us. We'll try to answer what questions you have. I'm not going to lie to you. I did not do a deep dive on any of these subjects, so I am not going to claim to be an expert, but we do have some demos to show and some things to see. So hopefully, y'all enjoy it. So without further ado, I will go into the presentation mode. Let's see. Oh, it's up. Sweet. All right. So welcome, guys. Thanks for joining me on stage. So I'm glad to have y'all.
Hello.
Yeah. No. So
Hello.
Anyway, go back. Uh-oh. I don't know how to use PowerPoint. All right, cool. Let's try this again. All right. Whatever. Start at the beginning. No? Something? Anyway? Okay. Who we are. Yeah, so you kind of heard in the announcements. We are the Baton Rouge.net user group leadership. So we've all been involved in this in some way, shape, or form since the streaming started. And then we've all hosted in-person meetings before the great COVID, whatever happened, and everybody went virtual. So, yeah, no, that's who we are. This is what we do. So first we'll get started. What spurred this is .NET Conf. .NET Conf is a 3-day virtual conference put on by Microsoft. They do it every year, typically in November. This past year, it was actually the second Wednesday in November, so it kind of ran alongside we didn't have a user group because of it, didn't we? I don't remember. But anyway, it's a great conference. It's free. It's online. So if you're at work, you can just sit around and stream it in the background. I know where I was working at the time, we kind of all had it up, set up a chat, so we can all talk about the different things that were coming out and what we could look forward to using or utilizing in our products that we are building. So that's really it. It's really nice. And again, like I said, it's free. You can find all of the VODs from this year on YouTube. At least I think all of them, the majority of them anyway, especially the big ones like the keynote and the ones that the Microsoft people do. So feel free to check that out. There's the address up there at the top. So if you need to find out, if you want to find out more, and be on the lookout, because I'm sure whenever .NET 7 comes out, they'll hold their other big event and talk about all the new things coming. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, we're just going to kind of get an overview of what the .NET framework is, because it's grown and it gets bigger and bigger all the time. So there's a lot of people out there who still think that .NET is for Windows developers. It only runs on IIS. It only runs on Windows servers, but that's not the case. The other thing that you used to always see is that it's closed source, and that you can't really get in there and see what's happening. But all of that has changed now. I mean, I know whenever I first started doing .NET development, everybody hit F5, and if the project didn't start running and you couldn't start debugging, then it wasn't a .NET project and it didn't work. Now, we have developers who are using the command line with Visual Studio Code and running their own commands. That's what I'll be showing tonight. I'll actually be running it on a Mac with the command line and Visual Studio Code. So there's like nothing in there that says Microsoft outside of the fact that Visual Studio Code is developed by them. But again, Visual Studio Code is open source and available to the public. So if you want to use it for anything, it's become really popular. I love using it. I use it for .NET development, and I use it for at least my .NET Core development, and I use it for all the UI development that I do.
I use code as well for a lot of my CI/CD stuff that I work on, because there's extensions that you can attach to it that allows tons of extendability and even syntax checking. So like all the workflow syntax, there's an extension for it with Visual Studio Code.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Azure development, anything YAML files, things like that. It's fantastic. And like I said, it supports .NET Core, supported pretty much everywhere: cloud, the web, desktop, mobile, gaming, and they're building on it constantly. So, yeah. Here's a slide that I stole from them. You can see down at the bottom from the sources. They present this in the keynote, and it's just kind of an idea of where .NET has come. Like, it's the amount of developers that are using it. They estimate to be somewhere around 5.4 million developers. People tend to love .NET Core in C#. It's been rated high in the Stack Overflow surveys that have been sent out. Yeah, GitHub, like I said, .NET itself is open source. So github.com/.NET, if you actually want to go and check it out, pull it down, make contributions to it, because you can see below that there's been a lot of community contributions. So a lot of community contributors. So that's what should be, contributors, not contributes. But anyway, you can see that .NET has really started to invest in open source, and it's really nice to see. Anything else y'all want to add? All right. This is always fun. I try to present this because if you're trying to sell .NET or a .NET framework, especially newer frameworks, to anybody, it's really nice to have examples of real world production projects that are using it. And there are way more than this, obviously, but these are some of the ways that .NET is actually being used at Microsoft. They're really big on dog fooding and using their own technologies when they can. So this is one of the examples of them doing that. I think Bing.com would probably be one of the more impressive ones. I think it was built with like server-side rendering Blazor and things like that. Like it's really nice. Let's see. Something else that's really nice that keeps coming is just the performance aspect of it. You can see, I'm not going to talk about Entity Framework very much, but Entity Framework, for those of you who don't know, is Microsoft's homegrown ORM. or object. Yeah. So it's, it's what people use to query databases, to edit, update, delete, those types of things. It's been around since, I don't know, forever, like .NET 2 something. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But and went from there. They had Link to SQL. They went back to .NET and the 4.0 era and continue to iterate on top of that constantly. So now with .NET Core, they continue to increase performance. So the complaints of people saying that area framework's slow are becoming less and less real. So that, and then also .NET Core, as far as a framework itself, is becoming quite faster. And it is one of the fastest frameworks that you can get out there now. So you don't have to worry about it being slow. All right. So we'll get to some of the major updates. Enough trying to sell you on the framework itself. And we'll start talking about what you're actually getting from .NET 6. And we're going to kind of dive into each of these a little bit more. Like I said, we'll show some examples, and then I'll let everyone here talk a little bit more about what they're excited about seeing and what they're excited about doing with it. Just real quick, if there's anybody in the chat, if you want to let us know, are you using .NET 6 yet? Has anybody migrated? Has anybody on the call migrated yet? I know before I left Blue Cross. For those of you who don't know, because we do have local people here, I no longer work at Blue Cross. And this is the second time through my second stint there. So I moved on to bluer pastures. Anyway, we were in the process of migrating a lot of our stuff to .NET 6 around the release candidate times, just to get the speed and Blazor improvements. Have anybody else on the call started doing that?
Not yet at our work. No.
I'm running my first Windows service right now in 6.
Okay. All right. So we got some adopters, but yeah. So the big things in here, and some of the things that we'll touch on, is C#10 came out. It has some new nice things. I don't know if there's a lot of things in there that I would see me using in like day-to-day things, but they lead towards the simplified development process towards the bottom, which I guess global usings could, and the Lambda improvements can be included in the C#10. But all of that stuff to help build what we'll talk about later, which was the minimal APIs, is something that I'm excited for. Apple Silicon. So again, Microsoft's done a really good job at trying to get .NET to run everywhere. So we had a talk before the call with like the whole ARM64 and ARM updates, where you can get .NET to run on Raspberry Pis fairly easily. And they're just going to continue to extend on that, which is nice. And then again, who doesn't want performance improvement? So if you can make your app faster out of the box just by migrating it to a newer framework, then hey, why not, right?
And it's actually a really easy migration if you're on 3.1 or 5.
It is, especially 5. I haven't tried 3.1, but 5 is.
The only reason I haven't upgraded our other web services, Windows services that we have to 6, is just because I don't feel like going the regression testing on them right now. But because it just works, right?
The only thing that ever caught me up in the past, the biggest migrations I've done was from 2.1 to 3.1. That sounds right. Yeah, and it was more so breaking changes in the NuGet packages that
ASP had a bunch of changes too, right? In the way that it was configured, right? In the startup file?
Yeah.
A lot of it changed.
Now the project files for 5 and 6 are like nothing.
Yeah.
So we'll look at one of those in a little while. But yeah, so cool. They continue to improve. Here's a highlight of what we're going to kind of talk about tonight. Another one we talked about earlier, a big one, Visual Studio 2022. So if you've ever seen me talk or worked with me, you know that I was a big fan of ReSharper. And at Blue Cross, they had ReSharper taken away. So because they were put on a naughty list, and I had to learn how to use Visual Studio 2022 without ReSharper, which wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. So the improvements that they continue to make to Visual Studio is fantastic. The new Intellisense, I know, Jeremy, you mentioned something about that earlier. The
new AI-driven Intellisense is extremely nice.
Very.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people freak out about it because they're like, oh, I have to send my code to Microsoft. No, there is an option to do all the machine learning locally and not have to send all that stuff off, or not have to get Microsoft access to your code. It can all be done locally, and it's really nice. Saves a ton of keystrokes and a ton of time.
Yeah, it's. I remember some of the guys messaging me whenever they first started. They were like, what is this? What is this sorcery that is happening? But the IntelliCode has gotten really good. It's insane what they're starting to do with that.
And I'm sure they keep adjusting it and making it better as they go along. So
yeah. So the 64-bit release is nice because we all have those massive legacy projects that we have to open from time to time, and
it's the first one in 64-bit. Everything else has been 32. Yeah.
So that's a nice upgrade. I think people have been asking for that for a while, and then they continue to improve, just workloads for the things that they host. Like you're going to see Hot Reload as a global tool. It hot reloads for more than just Visual Studio, but that it's making working in Blazor nicer. It's kind of catching up to some of the other UI frameworks where you don't have to worry about blowing away your state of your app.
What I like about Hot Reload now is not only does it work for the visual changes, but there's also a hot reload for code changes. So you can change stuff in the back end, do a hot reload, and it keeps your state and everything and just continues where you were.
When it works.
When it works.
When it works.
Now, I will say one thing, especially from a command line user, where doing the watch and when it doesn't work and it pops up and it says just hit Control-R and we'll refresh your app for you, that's still an improvement in my opinion. So,
yes.
So that's really nice. So it has gotten better. We touched on .NET 6 integration, GitHub and Azure integrations. So I know the Git tooling for Visual Studio 2022 is much nicer than previous versions.
And it now allows for multi-repo.
Yes.
Inside of Visual Studio, which I found nice. If your solution has more than one repo, you can check into and make updates to multiple repos at the same time instead of having to close the project and reopen each repo separately.
I think I'm too scared to try that.
Big improvement.
I'm gonna leave that one up to the experts. I still get frustrated and just close it all down, go to the command line, and start typing it out. So that's still, at the end of the day, I know I could do that. So new version of Visual Studio 2022. If you haven't downloaded it yet, by all means, go out there and get the community version and start playing around with it and seeing some of the updates that they have. So I won't demo that because, again, I'm on a Mac. So
how did you like the new one? Because that came out too, right?
The new one.
Or are you not using it? The new Visual Studio 2022 for Mac.
No, I went to download it the other day when I was going through this stuff, and it's not fully released yet, so it's still release candidates. So I was like, okay, well, probably the majority of the people who are going to watch this, the only time they're going to use a Mac is if they're doing like iPhone development. So I wasn't sure. That's true.
I mean, it's sitting right there.
Yeah,
it does exist. See, I can prove it.
Yeah. So I didn't think about it. I haven't tried it. I haven't tried it forever. So the reason why, it's a funny story. The reason why I stopped using Visual Studio for Mac is because the Vim plugin was always broken for me, and I can't do anything without a Vim emulator. So that's why I stopped using it. But as always, there's an upgrade assistant. So just to throw that out there, if you want to run it against a big project and see what all breaks, or see if there's a path for you to actually upgrade a legacy app, by all means, go out and try it. It's a guided experience, which means that they're going to walk you through, I believe it's all command line, but they'll walk you through the steps to try to help you out and try to get this as close as possible. I've seen it ran a few times, but I haven't tried out the new one yet. But this is all we're trying to do here is kind of make you aware of what the big announcements were, what's out there. So if it doesn't pertain to you, that's okay. But again, upgrade your projects if you can. Take advantage of all the new stuff that comes out in .NET 6 and the newer frameworks. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, the worst case scenario is you make your well, I guess worst case scenario is you break everything and you got to do a crap ton of regression testing. But after you've done that, you make your app faster, and that's what's really important. Speed is a feature. Yeah, hot reload everywhere, and it looks like they're going back. So they're going to actually try to support hot reload with older, well, not much older, but some older versions of .NET, which is nice to see them attempt. I think there's some caveats there. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but it's worth a try. I mean, something's better than nothing. Like I said, with the CLI support and Blazor, it's like it doesn't always work, but the experience is better than what it was. So, I mean, it's still, hot reload is still a work in progress, and they are very open about the fact that, you know, you can make your opinions heard. So if you want to follow a bug or follow an issue or something like that, I believe there's proper channels for you to do that and provide feedback on what you would like to see with hot reload and what scenarios you're running into. So the good thing about, the good thing about them being more community driven. So let's keep on going. All right. I said we'll demo some of that earlier. Yeah, this is a big one. And this is my favorite because I absolutely love doing demo projects or proof of concept projects and just like file new something and start writing some code. And this makes it so much easier. And then if you actually, so I do, TILs is something we talk about a lot. And I also do some tutoring for college students and not having to explain to them, you know, public static void main args and why they just need to ignore that is really nice. So you could just pull up a flat file and start writing code in it and running it locally. It's a lot easier to get people up and running and started. And then also with the minimal APIs, you know, so far from what I've seen, you can do pretty much anything and everything you want to do with an API, with a minimal API. And it's just, you know, you could do it all in a single file and create some routes and start calling them from your UI just to start testing things out and just build on top of it, you know, build in an iterative way. So getting up and running with less ceremony just to put together some proof of concepts is really nice. And here are some of the features that help you do that is implicit usings and global usings are awesome. I honestly didn't really pay that much attention to the implicit usings until I started playing around for this demo. But once I realized what they were, that's really cool. The Lambda improvements, I guess I could see people using them, you know, in their daily lives outside minimal APIs, but you're really going to see a lot of, they really earn their keep whenever we're talking about minimal APIs and getting that done. Does anybody here do deconstruction on objects? I know in the JavaScript world, it's very popular. So I like to see it in the C# world. So all they did there was make it to where you don't have to do both the assignment and the declaration inside of deconstruction, but we'll look at that too. Record structs, so they continue to improve on records. So records are nice. They're value-based objects that you can use in your code that handle things like equality very well. So if that's something that you're interested in, I think they still have a little ways to go on them, but it's nice.
They do, but key point on that one, bringing up the equality thing, is based on the way they're built. If you want to use link to objects, you do not have to implement iComparable or iEquatable if you want to do things like distinct operators and things like that against records. So not only do they make your code a little bit better as far as immutability, but they actually save you some code. Yes. Just implementing some of the base.NET link features.
Yep. No, that's really nice. So, I didn't do a demo for the interpolated string handlers, but that's okay. They may working with strings better and more efficient, but I don't have a demo for that. So,
how would you demo that with the stopwatch? Because isn't it like just speed enhancements?
It is, but it's the way you can construct them too.
Oh, okay.
So there's some construction implications that you can do around not having to declare like multiple string builders and stuff like that.
Oh, my favorite is the constants, man. I can interpolate string in attributes now.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So I think the next thing is we'll show some of the C# stuff. C# stuff. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. All right. So here, I'll probably need to make this larger. And since this is, let's see, view. I'm going to zoom in a bunch. Nope. All right, I didn't do it.
Control Shift wheel.
Here,
I mean, Control mouse wheel.
It's technically yeah, it's different because I'm on a. I don't have.
Oh, you're on a Mac.
I don't have a. I don't have a
alt scroll wheel.
Yeah. I don't have a Mac keyboard either. So, all right. So yeah, real quick. I have a bunch of stuff commented out because we're gonna have to. I want to make sure it broke, but already what you can see is the complete lack of. I mean, this was .NET new, out of the box, and a complete lack of just namespacing in general. Right? We don't even have to declare. I don't even know if I did it for this. No, I didn't. But you see, you don't have to have it anyway. So the whole lack of namespacing. I don't even have to put this class in a namespace. It's just there implicitly in one. The other thing you'll see is that there's no system or using, system.net or anything like that. We will run into an issue whenever I uncomment this because, or at least we should. Yeah. I don't have the using up there. I did that so that I remembered to go into this massive CSproj file. And one thing that I have turned off is this implicit usings. So one thing that was introduced that is really cool and really nice is implicit usings, where you don't have to do they automatically pull in the using statements globally for you that you're going to need for what you're trying to build, in a kind of a generic form, kind of so they know building a .NET console app. So they know we're going to use, using system and stuff like that. With .NET web APIs, they pull in all the different common web API using statements that you need into a global using file that they actually put somewhere in the bin, or it's done at build time. So I can actually just turn on.
While he's doing that, Brian, I was reminded this year already that there are developers who have never seen the giant files and probably didn't get that joke. I'm like, yeah, we're getting to the point where the SDK style project files are actually we have people that had 2-3 year developers that have never even seen the older ones.
That's funny. Yeah, that's true.
Did
I do it right?
It's insane.
So yeah, so now no, you're right. And they had I was watching something earlier today, and they were in Visual Studio, and they were going to edit a project file, and they're like, look, you don't have to unload the project and modify the project file and then reload the project in order to get it to work. You just go and load it. And one of the last projects that I worked on was a framework project, and it's like, oh, we have to go and modify something. Oh yeah, let me unload this and load this and do all. It's a nightmare. So, but you can do. Let's just do .NET. Well, this isn't going to work as nice because there's nothing to hot reload. But it's actually probably just going to run and then stop, right? I didn't try this on the command line, so this is going to be live. So, yeah, so it just runs. Oh, look, let's see if it's still watching. Let's see if we can actually. I was just going to rebuild and rerun. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I expected it to do. So. All right, cool. Whatever. We don't want to do that. But yeah, some stuff we talked about earlier. Here, we'll actually look. We have 2 different groups, and this is what we were talking about earlier, where we want to say if it is a group. Console dot. And then this is. This thing is just steady building. Awesome. So yeah, no. Yeah. So you can say is it true? So that's what we were talking about earlier, where now we don't have to do any equality on this, and we can actually come into this and see, oh, ignore this. Oh well, whatever. You can see it. This is for the deconstruction. So you can ignore this for now. But this is just a record. And it does the whole equality stuff for us. And like they were saying earlier, you can actually, I think it is implicitly a record as a class. So this should run and everything should continue to work.
That's still true. Still true.
Yeah. So, and then what they added for this iteration is a record can now be a struct. So it'll act like a struct. I think the big thing you get, the major thing you get with doing a record struct, I believe, is doing equality this way, right? I think there was a different way you could just do equals for a struct, but you couldn't do the equals without adding some additional code or something like that. I hardly ever use structs, so I'm probably not the best person in the world to talk about that.
It's just the operator. If you've overloaded the equal operator, that's what you gain.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just like for doing a class.
I'm actually surprised. I've actually never seen a record with get set. It's always been get init.
Well, that's because I'm not very good at my job. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, but now this is the whole deconstruction thing. So you can see up at the top, I have a string variable up here. And then down here, we have I have my string actually declared inside of here. So I'm just deconstructing those into two different variables. Before, you would have actually had to need the string in front of the name. And this is part of the cool new Lambda expressions, is that Lambda expressions are smarter now, and they can actually figure things out for you. So it knows in here that, I actually need to do, so it actually knows in here that, hey, it's expecting strings, and it should probably return, well, a result of it tells you what it is. So you see type 1 is a string, type 2 is a string, and that the result is actually going to be a string because the Lambda expressions can infer all of that. So
yeah, because you could never, technically that's a func, or actually that's a func, right? So you could never actually declare that as var before, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, because it actually goes down to delegates. So it's actually it can use all the delegate types to figure out what you want. And you can see here that we can actually take, here's the name that gets declared, and then it's steady running. And you can see down here that it gets built whenever I pass in. Oh wait, no, it should be building Brian McCoy somewhere.
You're not using first and last name. It's building what it should be building.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Live demos, gotta love it. You gotta love it. So quality control. Don't tell my boss.
It's pair programming. Let's go.
That's right. That's right. It wouldn't be fun if things didn't get messed up. So anyway, so now you can see. There we go. I don't know. It's doing something. Anyway, so that's a quick demo of that. You can see here, like the most important things that I would point out in here are the Lambda expressions, because that's going to come into play later. And then no usings. So the implicit usings, the global usings, we actually didn't set up a global using inside of here.
I have an example of that later. I can show
you. Do? Okay. Because I mean, it's creating a file and putting like global in front of the using declaration. So I'll let Jeremy show that later. So that'll be cool. And then let's keep on going, because I think we still got a good ways to go. Oh, awesome. So
that tuple that it was creating, you can do var URL, right? You don't have to actually give it an explicit type, correct?
Let's try it.
That's actually a question. I have no idea.
Here?
Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
No red.
Not
Right.
complaining.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Just run it once so that way we can see a little bit better. There you go. Yeah, you can just do var and it should, be able to infer that as a string. So, all right, we'll just leave it here. So, minimal APIs are what we're going to glance over next. Yeah. So, again, single file, easy to get started. They're cloud native, so you can run these in Azure if you need to. The whole low ceremony and things are going to, you're going to see that. It's going to make things a lot better, and you don't lose any functionality. And I think that is what the most important part is. So if we come down here, well, yay, it already has my Zoom done for me. Let's see, view the terminal. So we can do kind of the same thing. All right, so up here, just real quick to get a lay of the land. Again, there's no like system.net, system.api, system. I want all the things I need in order to build a web application. It is just a program file. We also got rid of the startup. This looks really similar to Azure Functions if you ever wrote those. This is what this really reminds me of. So this is just a class. This, again, all the stuff comes out of the box. If you want to use your controllers, they exist. So they didn't get rid of them. You can still use them if you want, but we're not going to use those because we don't want to. So go back to the CS_proj file. Again, it's like nothing so far. The only package reference that it comes in here that I guess isn't included in the framework itself is going to be swashbuckle stuff for Swagger. If you're an API developer and you're not using Swagger, then I would wholeheartedly tell you to invest some time into learning about it because it's only going to make your life easier. And it's fantastic whenever you develop an API for somebody and you say, here's the Swagger, go and test it out. And if you can recreate your issue there, then give it to me and I'll figure out the rest.
Yeah, it's basically simplified documentation for your API.
So, and we'll talk about the documentation part too a little bit.
You could have a whole talk on just that though, because it's really nice. I mean, you can document what the objects look like coming out of it. It's extremely nice, and it's so nice, like he said, to be able to just say, here, go to this link. You want to use my API?
Yep.
And then don't bother me unless you have problems.
Right. So here we can come in here, and you can see as in here, like this kind of looks. I mean, doesn't look like the .NET 5 part, but it kind of starts to look like the .NET 5 stuff a little bit. But you should be able to. It's gonna be app.mapget. I probably should have paid more attention in class. This is API.
Is your route
something new, and then just create a function, right? Ooh. So can we just return results.ok and then something. Whoa, I just did that blind. I hope that it works. All right. So if I did this correctly, I should be able to come into .NET watch. You see why there's so many typos in the
you misspelled watch.
Yeah, you see why there's so many typos in the presentations because I typed it out. So that's why we have lint rules. So that way I don't have to worry about things like that. And this is going out for everybody to see, so it's fantastic. All right. So as you can see here, we have our Swagger documentation. Woo! And you can see that Swagger automatically picked up our something new. Try it out. We can execute it, and the body returns something. So that quick, that easy, I was able to make a simple GET request that returns something nice for me. So if you are trying to develop a new API, especially for a proof of concept, you can come in here and quickly get it done. I mean, it is. Oh, look, it didn't. Oh, did I do the wrong one? I did the wrong one. All right. Yeah. Yeah, it's that easy, and it has everything. So you can do map.get, you can do map.post, map.put. All of your favorites are here. As you can see here, I'm actually returning the result status, so you can actually do all the different results. So if you're doing, 404s or not authenticated, all that stuff works. You also have all of the, oh man, I wish I remembered the ones, but oh yeah, here we go. So if you want to do your Swagger documentation that they were talking about earlier, it takes in stuff like this.
Well, all those other ones, the with produces and all that stuff, that's all Swagger related. That tells it what it produces. Like you could tell with produces that it produces a string, for example, and it adds it that.
Nope, that's exactly right. So you can, this is where you would start filling out all the Swagger documentation that you would normally get here. I guess they didn't fill it out for us. Slackers. Anyway, so if you ever want to decorate your Swagger docs, now we should actually have a tag on it if we run it again. So you can actually tag your Swagger docs. But yeah, no, I mean, it's all here. You can put, if I'm not mistaken,
if you look at the bottom also, you just noticed hot reload worked. So
yeah,
it never stopped the actual application, but
no.
Once you've done that, it's already gone through. Just refresh the page.
This. Where's my tag? Did I put my tag on here? I don't see it. I could have done that wrong. But anyway, yeah. So no, you could actually decorate everything, all your APIs in the code, or you can actually do it with attributes too. Attributes are supported on your minimal API functions. So everything you need is here, and you could just continue to build it out. I'll be really interested to see what people do. This does support dependency injection and everything else. You can see your builder is adding services, so you can still do builder.services.add transient or whatever it is that you actually want to configure your dependency injection and have all that stuff work out of the box. So all your friends are here. The only thing that I think I heard that it didn't really support very well was versioning your API routes, but that's again a whole other talk in itself as to how you want to handle that, or if you should handle that, or whatever else you want to, or you just move to GraphQL. You don't worry about it. I don't know.
I imagine they're gonna update their library. We use that versioning library pretty heavily at work. You mentioned really dependency injection. Mm-hmm. That is one of the big things for me with minimal APIs, because controllers have always been interesting for many reasons. And being able to just form your own folder structure and domain-driven design with your actual web request, and it'll be so much nicer. And there are a few frameworks out there that I've seen. They're all in their infancy right now. Mm-hmm. If you want to do like some kind of dependency injection to pull in all your requests across your API, I think you'd probably be better off rolling your own right now. Probably wouldn't be too hard with some of the things that you actually have access to in that services library. But it's definitely something that's going to get better over time, I think. I know we had him, or Dallas is actually one of his blog posts that I was reading about it. We had him speak last year, and he pointed to one of those UI library, well, minimal API libraries, to do exactly that, to basically say, I have this, there's a request type that they have, super type. I can't remember if it was an interface or a abstract class. You just implement that though, and it just goes and grabs all of them across your API.
Yep. So it'll be interesting going forward to see how people utilize this. The one demo that I saw that really intrigued me was for like long running processes where you don't need all the ceremony set up. You mentioned a Windows service earlier.
It's using a worker service. It would be the same thing hosting it in here as it would be.
Yeah. So
in the Windows environment that we are. Yeah,
we've used functions. I keep saying we've in the Blue Cross context, not my new employer context. But it's to listen to events like from Azure Service Bus and stuff, and it was something like this would have worked out well. It's like you just put it all in here. Do you know APIs work? Calling them works with Blazor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you could have this up and running. And
remember, Blazor's just front end, right?
yeah,
so,
Blazor's going to be a front end. So we'll see a Blazor project here in a second. We'll talk about it. But yeah, you could run them in tandem and call your minimal API from a Blazor application.
I don't know if I would do it, but you could theoretically host controllers, minimal APIs inside of a Blazor server application as well, if you really felt like it. Might not be the best way to architect it, depending on what your use case is, but
So, we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, that's a quick overview of minimal APIs. I'm just going to drop this nugget here. Any one of these topics that we've covered, like we're just glancing over the top of them. There's so much more information about these in here, and going to the .NET Conf website, you can find a bunch of people doing those talks. And what I would suggest you doing, go watch one you're interested in, take a bunch of notes, and then reach out to us and then come on our show or come on our stream and give that same talk. I'd really appreciate that. It makes my life a lot easier. So, but anyway, that's what I do. I'm not going to lie to you. Just steal other people's content. Minimal APIs. We covered that. So YARP, yet another reverse proxy, is a very interesting one. I'm not going to demo it because I didn't set it up, but in the past, I have used Nginx to do most of my reverse proxying, and I am not an infrastructure person. So my reverse proxying scenarios are not very complex, but this probably would have served me much nicer than trying to host a Unix box with Nginx on it, just to have a config file with a few lines of code in it. But it would have been much nicer if I could have just used something like this. Anyway, YARP is a .NET based reverse proxy. So if you do any kind of reverse proxying coming into your enterprise or website, this is something that you can utilize. It offers static file configuration, so you can have I think it's JSON, maybe even YAML, I don't know, but you can have static file configuration for your coming ins and going outs. You can also do it programmatically. I don't know. Kind of similar to what we were doing earlier with the JSON, with the Swagger configuration. So, and this will handle things like load balancing, your health checks to let you know if things are down. You can handle multiple sites. It also happens to handle gRPC, which is interesting. I wonder how many reverse proxies out there now struggle with something like that. I'm not an infrastructure person, but I thought that was worth noting. And it can also, transform requests and responses. So that way, if you have a GET coming in and a post going out or something like that, and your back end's a post, but you want to represent it as a GET on the front end, things like that happen. There's some places they may consider anything other than post security issues, but I wouldn't use that as a good excuse.
One thing on that one too. I know I watched that one when they introduced that one, and their big the reason they built it was for legacy applications that wanted to migrate slowly to microservices. This actually runs in the context of your application, so you can install this into your ASP.NET application and slowly but surely start one endpoint at a time, bringing in microservices, but configuring that old endpoint to just pass through to the microservice in the backend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fantastic one because you can't just include it straight up in your project. So, awesome. Azure Support, I guess it's just announced that, hey, it's out there, it's available. You can start putting your .NET 6 stuff in Azure. One of the things I was looking forward to the most and can't wait to try out is the Azure Function Runtime being updated. Most of the time, whenever you're trying to put stuff in Azure, they would prefer LTE versions, and sometimes like a lot of the .NET 5 stuff wasn't supported, so you'd have to do .NET 3.1. But 6 is LTE. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier. That seems like a big one to mention.
LTS.
LTS, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of cellular service. Yeah, long-term support. So yes, .NET 6 is long-term support. So if you are holding out and you didn't want to move to 5 because of the shorter lifespan, .NET 6 is going to be what you want to go to. Get through some of this. Blazor. This one's huge. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can do with Blazor now. It's ridiculous. I think one of the most impressive things I've seen is the compile your code to WebAssembly and not use IO, and the fact that you can actually bring in like external dependencies and convert them to WebAssembly as well. I think one of the demos they showed a C++ library getting compiled down to WebAssembly and deployed and used in the Blazor app on the front end. There are there are trade-offs with it. There are trade-offs. I believe, it does require additional build tools, and there's an additional load time for it, but it may be something worth looking at, especially if you have some special edge cases that you need to support. Again, they're moving, the whole concept of faster is still here in Blazor. So they're making the framework faster, they're making it more reliable. They smaller bundling sizes, which is nice. So I think they showed now it's like under a meg or right at a meg or something like that, download size for the client side. So that helps. Let's see. Oh yeah, I kind of mentioned the native dependencies. Error boundaries are cool if you use them. So it's nice to see that they got put in there. The dynamic components is very interesting, and I'll actually show off that a little bit. So that has a lot of potential to be used. So I really like to see that added. So we'll look at that probably in a second. So yeah, let me pull it up. So
one of the interesting things that they announced that I haven't gotten to check out is the integration with normal web components, like Angular components or React components. I think it's gonna be a game changer for some teams that move between the different worlds, especially in long-term maintenance of applications.
No, I think that's a really good one. And one other thing. Well, I guess I did it for the demo. I got, because I'm going to show it here, is the Fluent UI components. So I'm not trying to sell anybody on Fluent UI. This is just another component UI library that's out there. It's optional. I think the big sell is that you can develop Blazor apps for teams. And if you want your Blazor apps to look like they belong inside teams, Blazor Fluent UI is what you want to use. This is what I actually use at work. But I use it for React. Don't hate me. Anyway, this is what I use at work. It's not bad. Microsoft supports it. I think they own it. Not own it, but it's open source, so they contribute to it. So if you're looking for a component library out there, that's just another option that you have that's supported and in use. And I'll show you how it's actually going to be used in here. So we'll actually try to show off. This is where you really earn the money with your hot reload. So you can see it is, this is supportive edit. So they admit that they don't hot reload everything. But so if we come into, look at the loading our components, pull this off to the side and see. So I do have some minor additions here. This is the typical website that you would get out of the box. I didn't do anything fancy to it. The only thing I added was I did add the Fluent UI components. I feel like there's probably some Bootstrap stuff fighting with it, but just to show you how you can implement. This is the main reason why I do it, is because here you can see that you're just pulling the control in and you don't have to worry about CSS. So that's the big sell to me whenever using component libraries like this. If you was just using the Bootstrap stuff without using, there is a package for Bootstrap to pull them in and to pull Bootstrap stuff in to where you can use them as components like this. But let's see. This works. And we change the file and hot reload changes are successful. So you can see that it actually do it like this. So you can see that, so we can change the state, go to our counter. I'm jumping all over the place here because we're getting late. So we made some minor changes. You can see our hot reload kicking in and taking effect. So that's another big one that we got, is the hot reload. So my UI is updating and my state is maintained. So that's the win there. That's a fantastic user experience. And then we'll talk about dynamic components. So hopefully I didn't screw this up. All right. So the concept around dynamic components is the fact that I can have this tag right here and have any of my components loaded into it that I say any, but I'm sure up here inside my components folder, I have just a couple of Star Wars themed components because every demo I do has to have Star Wars in it. So what I have on the page essentially is just a combo box where I can select a planet, a Jedi Master, Sith, or a spaceship, and then actually have that component loaded in my UI for me. So, why didn't you change? There might be a bug. Why didn't you change? Oh, because I commented it out. All right. When demos go, I was experimenting. So let's see if hot reload saves me. And it did. Look at there. So I actually changed the C# code. So what I was doing is trying to get an idea of how this, how do you actually set the dynamic component? Because you can see it's expecting a type. So I just put the type up in front because this is some code that I stole off of the docs and just changed it up a little bit. So you can see that here it's using some type of reflect. It's just using the get type to go in there and try to find the component and get the type for it. So that way we can set it for the dynamic component. And that just was playing around. But anyway, you can see here that now these aren't, what's getting rendered isn't like text. It isn't a class that's being passed in. It is strictly a component. So what you could actually do here is if you had a dashboard of widgets, I think is an example that they use where people want to customize what widgets they can see and want to see, instead of just having a bunch of if statements or something, you can load up a list and just loop through them and load a bunch of dynamic components on a screen, instead of checking a bunch of flags to hide them and show them or something like that. So anyway, I thought that was really cool. I think there's a lot of potential for dynamic components. So I wanted to show those, but that's about it. I don't know if anybody else has anything.
That I'm looking at your file list right there, and one of the things that I really liked that they added was is actually in your file list, and I don't know if you meant to do that or if it just came with it, but the razor.css and the razor.json capabilities that we have now.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's newish. I think 5 added CSS and 6 added JS, if I remember correctly. Might be wrong. They both might have came with the. I skipped 5 because of some of the issues we have at work with using non-LTS stuff like you were talking about earlier. But that is actually really nice to be able to put isolated CSS and JavaScript directly with your component.
So I think the JavaScript is new. I think the isolated CSS came out in 5. So there's a lot of JavaScript interrupt stuff that I glanced at. I didn't even mention. Jeremy mentioned some of it earlier about building Blazor components for other UIs and vice versa and stuff like that. But there's some additional controls that they added, like multi-select, I think got easier, and then streaming byte arrays through the JavaScript interrupt got a lot better. So there are other things. Again, if you want to do a talk on Blazor or want to learn more about Blazor, their docs have been fantastic. So you can go through and check them out. This is where I'm going to lean on the other people here because they volunteered for
so the .NET multi-platform API is just essentially, it's the new, I'll go ahead and share my screen. If I can get my screen back. There we go. Essentially, that's what it's called, .NET MAUI for short. Essentially, what they did is they redesigned Xamarin. So Xamarin was for building iPhone, Android, or Mac UWP files. Now with MAUI, it uses all of .NET 6, so it uses all the C# changes, the global using, all that kind of stuff. It still goes for iOS, Android. You can use Mac OS now. And for Windows, it doesn't do UWP anymore. It actually does full Windows native applications. So basically something you would download from the store. So they've stopped using UWP, which is great because Windows 11 just said, forget UWP. And again, it's all .NET. It's all open source, so you can easily see it inside the .NET area. To show you a little example, I have the original .NET Xamarin. You always had your separate application, separate project files for the different apps. So if you have an Android, iOS app that you're building, you would have separate projects for each of those apps, and all of this stuff would be inside of there. With Maui, currently it's only in the preview. I believe when they say 17.1 gets submitted, that'll be inside of there. But inside of Maui, it gets rid of all these separate projects, and it's all one big project now. So again, you can actually say which platforms you want to do. There's a platforms folder, so it's inside. You have your Android, your iOS, your Windows. Anything native goes into these areas inside the platforms, but everything else is using the MVVM model view models structure. So you have your view models, you have your models, and your views here. It's still using the XAML structure for the talking, for the showing of everything. That's actually show that next. To easily get this, you would just download the .NET preview version, which is 17.1, and then when you would check the mobile development, just like you do for Xamarin, but it now comes with .NET Maui preview as an optional, as you see on the side here. And then they're saying you can use it currently inside of regular .NET, Visual Studio 22, but if you use the preview, it allows you to come in and new project, and there's actually Maui templates inside of here. So that's what they're saying is for using it inside of the preview version gives you access to all these templates for the projects. Again, it works just like any Xamarin app. You have your views. Instead of using UWP, it's using XAML. You can run it inside of an Android. You can run it on a Windows machine. And one thing that Maui is doing now is normally to run an iOS device, you would have to have a MacBook. You'd have to be doing it on a Mac, which then you wouldn't be able to program for a Windows machine. Or you can do it on the Windows machine like I am and have a Mac separate from you off to the side. But they now have it where I turned off my Mac. So I don't have it anymore, but I can actually build and run an iOS. All I have to do is have the actual, I have just a little iPod Touch on my computer connected to my Windows machine. And then all I have to do is I can say, run it on my local device. And you still have to have the Apple developer account. But once you do that, you would be able to run it, and it installs it onto the Apple device and builds it using the Apple device's structure without having to actually have a Mac to run the build and everything inside of. So, like it says, it's just asking me to open it up on my iPod, and it's very nice where it actually is running on my iPod. Again, I can have emulators for Android and such. And one thing that they have in here is, as we were talking about earlier, the global using, which is all this one file is right here. So instead of having all these using statements at the top of every single file, so every single view model would have to have all these usings at the top, you have this one file called global using, and that allows all these using statements to be available inside all files inside the project. So you can clean up your current projects and just have what you need inside the page, and then all the different usings are inside this one file.
Yeah, and it makes it really nice so that way you don't have to worry about adding a using, refactoring a class, removing the using to move it somewhere else, then adding something back in that original class, having to add the using back in. Just put the using in the global place. Most of the ones that you use over and over again.
And that file can be named whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, we call ours
They just have a global using here.
Yeah.
One thing with Maui is there is a community toolbox again, just like there was in the Xamarin. A good blog to look for the talk about the Maui community toolkit is codetraveler.io. He has a nice article about how to use the community toolkit and what's available inside of it and stuff. So
nice. I know one thing that I saw some people doing was the whole using Blazor components inside of a Maui app. So I'm really interested to see how that turns out.
Yeah, so instead of using view models, you can actually use a Blazor app. So you're running a .NET Maui project with the Blazor views, and it's basically running a Blazor application inside of your Android app, your iPhone app, or your Windows app.
Yeah.
So it works just like a normal Blazor app, but it's just inside.
And once they get that perfected, I think you'll start seeing some interesting conversations between your Avalonia, your Uno platform, and Maui, because I think this is one of those situations where Microsoft is playing catch up with some of the .NET tooling that's out there already through third parties. I think it's going to have some interesting conversations that come out of that, because that's one of the things I'm waiting for. I kind of told you guys before we went live is I'm actually waiting for more of that Blazor stuff. I can't wait for more of that Blazor interaction because of not only personal projects that I want to get done, but I have at work, for example, we will never go to Xamarin Maui until we can use some kind of web publish at the same time.
Right.
No, that's a big. I mean, you have a lot of competitors out there: Expo, Ionic.
Well, I'm speaking specifically in the .NET world.
Yeah, but to have .NET catch up to that would be
because
fantastic.
we're actually on Ionic. We're actually in the process of moving on to Capacitor, their replacement for Cordova, which it feels like Cordova is kind of going the way of the dodo bird at this point. They've completely replaced Cordova, and we're rewriting our application to use Capacitor right now. And one of the things that came up during that was, do we just want to rewrite it in Maui or Xamarin or something like that? But and we hadn't even looked at Uno or Avalonia or anything like that, because once we got to the point and started looking at it, it was we already have all these assets. It would have taken so much longer to rewrite it in the .NET front end.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to be the next big competitive space. So it'll be really nice to see what comes out of there, the innovation that it drives. Yeah, no, if I only had one more slide, and it was the whole what are you excited about? So we don't need to talk about it. We're good. I mean, you can let us know. I mean, I don't need to show it. We can just ask you. What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to?
There's a few things with Entity Framework that I know we didn't mention. Speed is really nice, and I know a lot of people freak out about speed, and they're and one of the things that really surprised me was the fact that they didn't use T-SQL data engine when they were doing all their performance checks. It was Postgres. So there's a standard Postgres, there's an industry standard Postgres test suite that they actually ran against, and all their metrics came off of that, and they have extreme differences between their version of EF Core 5 and EF Core 6. The other thing is temporal tables, if you use those, now supported. But for me, a lot of EF stuff that I really can't wait for is actually going to be in next year.
Nice.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be long-term support, so I'm not going to get to use it for 2 years. They're finally they're adding in one of the TPs or the table. I forgot which one it is. It might be TPH that they're adding back in that they never added in. Table per hierarchy, I think, is the one they're adding back in that they took out when they went to core. And they're finally going to go and add in correct bulk update insert support.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So you no longer have to drop down the ADO to do bulk inserts updates anymore.
That's a big one. So
yeah, they released that list, and there's a big old long list, and I can post that. I've been posting stuff in the thread on Discord for the meeting. I'll go try and find the EF Core 7 announcement. But back to some of the other, and really that was one of the bigger ones for me. As far as EF Core was performance and temporal tables, they'd had a really interesting demo around GraphQL and just pointing at context at GraphQL, and it just generates your API for you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being useful to some people.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that, I mean, we were looking at competitors to OData midway through 2021, and GraphQL came up, but it was one of those things where that's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
With that new wrapper that they have in EF Core 6, I think you're going to see a lot more usage.
I'm really going to have to check that out. That really has my interest. So I'm going to have to, that may be the next talk that I do, would be something around that API and GraphQL and Area Framework, just to get my head around that. I think that'd be really cool. I've used OData a lot for a long time, and you can kind of see the problems that they tried to solve and then the problems that they accidentally or purposely did solve. So, and there's a lot of misconceptions that I think around how to use OData. I've seen people try to use it, just, I don't know, poorly. That's the only way I could say it. It's just trying to do things that I don't think it was meant to do. I have seen some more recent talks around it about some great improvements that they made. So, Microsoft heavily invests in OData. I think like all your CRM, SharePoint queries and stuff like that's all OData calls. So obviously they know what they're doing. So it must have just been the people I was working with who didn't. But it happens. So
to correct myself, it was table per concrete is the one that they're adding back in. And the other thing that they're adding is support for JSON columns in EF Core 7 as well.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have a NoSQL database inside of a SQL database before you know it.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I mean, we have people. I ain't gonna lie, we're augmenting ours right now with JSON. Mm-hmm. We have a ton of data that gets audited out of our CRM environment, and we're tempted to just replace it and just drop JSON files into the database. At this point, it would actually save us a ton of cost in our move to 365. Because our big cost going there is actually all the custom entity types we have in CRM. All the storage, the data storage is actually our killer. So if we can get a lot of that stuff in our own databases and just use, and it sounded like they have something kind of what like SharePoint had, and I hadn't messed with it in a while, but with the business data catalog, where you used to be able to point a entity type at a SQL table or a view or something like that, and have it kind of work for you. So we're looking at a lot of that kind of stuff, and some of the new things that we're looking at with EF7, that's actually why I came across it. I was looking into some of the JSON support, and I ended up coming across that announcement for 7, and I was like, oh joy, I ain't gonna use it for 2 more years, so that's off the place.
Awesome. But hey, something to look forward to.
Yeah.
.NET Conf 2024, I guess, like 2023 at this point.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So it's like going forward, I know you had mentioned it earlier, but going forward, like we're on 6 right now. So 6, 8, all your even numbers are going to be releasing long-term support. Mm-hmm. It's odd years, even numbers.
Yeah.
Going forward. So your 7, 9, all that's going to be your normal short-term release, short-term support releases. For anyone that didn't know that.
And it went from like, what was it? Was 2.0? No, 2.0 was short-term. 2.1 was long-term. Then like 3.1 was long-term, and then
the .1s were your long-term in that when they were in that world.
And then they just went to, I guess they went to 4, huh? Or did they skip 4 and go to 5? I don't remember. No, they skipped 4 and went to 5.
Core was 4, really, if you think about it.
Well, you had 3.1, right? Why you shouldn't use Entity Framework? I don't know. In .NET Core 6 world, I don't really know if you have a real reason to say no. I mean, they compared it to Dapper. Like, the numbers were very compared to Dapper. Unless you want, and look, I did a talk last year on ADO.NET for beginners. There's no reason why you can't get down in this.
Got some DBA.
Look, ADO.NET. I'll just call you store procedure and you'll be happy.
Yeah, I had a DBA friend give me a GIF. Hold on, I'll get it.
Also, if y'all have any topics y'all want to want us to cover,
keep it by my side at all times. It's yet another link query that should have been a store procedure. So he saves those specifically for. Oh, okay. Well, of course it's Thomas who wants to. All right, it all makes sense now. Can we ban him from the chat? So it all makes sense. It all makes sense. No.
Yes.
So the next talk we're going to have is why it's like how to give your DBA heart attacks with Entity Framework, and then we'll have Thomas come on and talk.
Lazy load everything.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God! Please do that.
Oh man, look, I mean, you could get really good with Link, and especially with tools like LinkPad nowadays, where you can just go in and see exactly what your SQL is going to be generated as. But you could also screw up some stuff really easily. It's not a tool that you should be using unless you know what you're doing with it.
For those of you on the VOD wondering what we're talking about, please join us live and talk to us in the Twitch chat.
Yeah,
so that's what's happening.
So, but yeah, if you watch it on YouTube, well, actually, the way it exports now, you'll get the chat, right?
No, not the Twitch chat. The Twitch.
What
we post to YouTube
true.
will be there, and what's on the YouTube chat will be there, but not from the Twitch chat.
All this fancy streaming stuff. So,
like I said, if y'all want any kind of topic or anything for us to cover in the future, let us know. Send us something on Twitch or Twitter or
Twitter,
Discord.
A million ways
we're everywhere. So
we all have socials of our own too, so we can all be get a million ways to connect to us.
We're not hard to find. No. So, and I don't know, if I stop being lazy, I'll start reaching out to more people. But last year we did great. We had a bunch of really, really good speakers. And then this year
we are looking for a February speaker. So if you don't like to speak,
I will actually
that question he asked just made me think of something else. I mentioned earlier I've been working on some .NET 6 stuff at work. There are some new tooling around the ADO.NET framework that I didn't know existed. Like, I have libraries that you can go on my GitHub and find out for extension methods for pulling data from a data record. So like get value or default, get value or null, and things like that. They actually have been doing pretty good work. Apparently, I don't know if it's a .NET 6 thing or 5 or when it released, but since the last time I worked heavily in ADO, they actually have a lot of that built in now.
No, I think I made a switch to Dapper a while back and just never looked back.
Actually, there was a third one that I really liked. RepoDB or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was it had really good support for bulk. We talked about that Entity Framework's finally going to get correct stuff in 7. It had really good support for bulk, and it was kind of that middle ground between EF and Dapper at the time. But EF just kept getting faster, and I've always been one that if I needed the speed, I would just drop to ADO.NET anyway.
Yeah. You can't get, you can start writing store procedures if you wanted to. But
Dapper's basically sitting on top of ADO.NET too. It's like you can't get any closer to bare metal than ADO.NET when it comes to that.
So, I don't know what else we got. Like I said, we're looking for a February speaker. If you're interested, I will actually. This will be I will not be here in February. It will be the first user group meeting in like 5 years that I missed, or something serious like that.
You weren't looking at the calendar when you scheduled your vacation?
I did not have a choice in the matter. And honestly, the sad thing is typically, yes, I schedule all of my vacations around .NET user groups.
Oh, I know how it is.
This one just didn't work out that way. So I didn't have much of a choice in the matter. So you may not see us next month, or you may just see these two next month. It's up to them. So
if we can find a speaker.
Yeah.
As a reminder for those not local watching right now, next month might be a little hectic for some people. I don't know how many people. I don't know if either one of you guys are involved in any of the Mardi Gras stuff or anything like that.
Yeah, we're based in Louisiana, so this is Mardi Gras season started this
Balls
past
should have
week.
happened,
So
right? Balls should be happening right now, so.
Endymion Ball already happened. So.
Oh, nice. No, I am married from somebody who is not from Louisiana, so we do absolutely nothing Mardi Gras related. So, other than get out of Louisiana, apparently.
You got lucky because I married a Georgia girl, and I still have to go. The second we had kids, it was like we were never missing a parade.
Oh, that's funny. No, I haven't been in a parade in forever, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's a hope of mine too.
Yeah, I hope Omicron doesn't mess it up either as well. But
yeah,
all they're saying right now is just mask up, and all the riders. Each parade has to track their own riders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the two that we absolutely have to go to, we catch it at people's houses we know, so we can, kind of like
that's the best.
Get the hell away from us. We don't know you. We
you have you have your own spot
rope
lined
off
out for you. Yeah,
rope off the yard.
Yeah. But I've been messing with some things. I know you guys posted a few things. If you want to update any GitHub repos and throw them in the thread, I'm gonna post the 2 or 3 repos I have as well that I've been messing with that I did convert up to .NET 6 and use some of the new tooling.
Yeah, I could throw the .NET example for Maui that I had. Be on the Discord inside the chat.
Yeah.
Yep. Everything is we turned on threads in Discord a couple months ago, and we now have a thread per event, thread per meeting. So all the links I've been posting, all the links that were called out, plus I posted all the links from when Microsoft announced it, all their announcement links. So your list of what's new kind of in .NET, EF, ASP.NET, all of those are in the thread as well. Like I said, I'll probably try and post some of my repos that I did go through. Thank you guys for demoing, and I had Visual Studio up just in case you guys were like, we need a demo of that, but you guys did a good job.
No, I scrambled last night. I was like, oh, let's do this. So no, it's cool. So the joys of being a user group leadership is that sometimes you just get thrown in there. So, but it's cool. No, I appreciate y'all's help. Appreciate all the candor back and forth. So it was nice. This is like let's say we had a complete roundtable discussion 1 month. This was our go-between. Like we have slides and demos and we have some structure to this one. So we'll go with it. But
I'm gonna move that for you, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the thread on the user group.
It should be on the events. We have an events channel.
Oh,
I don't even have Discord.
I see it. Yeah.
Discord. So nice. Oh yeah, we also. Oh, we have no chatting in there. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. Thanks everybody for tuning in, for showing up. I didn't expect much. We have a pretty decent following now. I mean, we've been steady 18, 20 viewers across the 2 platforms. We are streaming on YouTube and Twitch, so we are getting fancier. We have nobody watches on YouTube, but that's okay.
I've been watching it on YouTube the whole time, and it's been 0.
Yeah, it's been 0, but
it is nice for us though. We don't have to export from Twitch to YouTube.
Right now, I just go in there and click a button, say make it live, and we're done. So that's really nice. So yeah, but anyway, thanks everybody for coming out and chatting with us and watching. I would say we're in the process of getting speakers for the rest of the year, but let's face it, the year's just started. We'll figure it out as we go. It'll be all right. So I'm gonna start sending out mass messages, and we'll get some people lined up. If you have anybody that you would like to hear from, just drop a note somewhere. We'll see about getting them. I mean, I'm not scared for somebody to tell me no, I don't want to come on your silly show. So, I mean, I've been told no plenty of times. Trust me.
I can attest to that. I've heard the stories of how many emails he sends out.
Yeah. I mean, if I use everything. I mean, I go hunting. It's funny because the whole .NET Conf thing last year, what I did was I went through their speaker list, and just anybody who put their contact information out there just got an email or a message through Twitter or something. So, yeah, we'll get on it. Like I said, I'm not afraid to ask. I may forget, so just remind me. But we'll find some speakers. We have some regulars that we usually get. We had some really popular ones last year. Our Dallas, I think, was our biggest one. I think that video last time I looked at like over 5,000 views or something on it. So
we need to figure out how to do it. I think Discord might have it now, so we might be able to use it. But it'd be really nice to do some kind of well, no, I don't want to do a poll. I don't want to limit people. It would be really nice to do some kind of survey and be like, what do you guys want to hear? Because I've got presentations laying around that I haven't done yet. Mm-hmm. And if it hits on one of those, it would be really nice to just pull it out.
I mean, at this point, it take sometimes you just gotta take what you can get. So if you have something you want to, I mean, because there's some technology I'm interested in too. So I mean, once I get that talk up and running, if we have a gap in the months, then that's what you're going to get. So
yes.
But anyway, thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back soon. So if you have any parting words, feel free to say them. If not, Jeremy, take us out.
Y'all be safe.